Hey everybody, Quantum back here again, and we are going to be reviewing Emerald for Shimmering Skies. We've already done Amber and Amethyst, so you can check those out on the channel. This is August 10th, so it is the day after the official hobby store release. Market prices have started to fluctuate a little bit. Ironically enough, some things have actually gone up in price from pre-orders, not down. So again, just showing you that some things were indeed undervalued, and then, for the most part, a lot of things are coming down. Like the foil legendaries were all like at $100, and now they're rationally coming down to like 40-50 bucks Canadian. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. To start off, we have Robin Hood. Out of all of the 9 cost uninkable, like reduce the cost of this card by X amount because of this situation, the Robin Hood does seem like one of the better ones for sure. It's a 9 cost inherently 6/6 body that quests for 4, which is really nice. And Robin Hood's a fantastic character, one of the best characters in Disney for sure. It has ward, which is always nice. And then for each 1 damage on opposing characters, you pay 1 less to play this character. This card is in the starter deck, which is probably why the non-foil is so cheap. But the foil version would be nice to have probably. But this is one of the more realistic ones because you could potentially, it doesn't say for each one damage on like a unique character, right? It's not like if you need to have like 4 characters in play, all with damage on your opponent's side in order to pay 4 less for this. You can have 1 character on your opponent's side, like let's say they Maui one of your threats and the Maui has 4 damage on it. Now this Robin Hood now costs 5 instead of 9 because the 4 damage on the 1 character counts as 1 individual damage, which means you pay 1 less for this. So this card is actually way more realistic, especially if during your turn you can throw stuff into your opponent's characters and just damage it to reduce the cost of this even further. And again, this is just a huge threat. It comes down, it's a 6/6 body, it's going to take out pretty much anything, and it also has ward, so it can't be targeted by well, not that it would, by like Madame Medusa or anything, but just by general stuff it can't be targeted, and then it quests for 4, so it's super strong. Yeah, one of the better ones for sure in my opinion. Again, it comes in the starter deck, so that's nice to see that it's widely accessible. Not sure if I'd play it in like Emerald Steel necessarily, given the way that deck is usually constructed in terms of like it's focused on discard. But yeah, you can play it, obviously everyone's using it in Emerald Steel, but you can play it in an Emerald Ruby deck potentially as well. Interesting card. I think it's a good one. And again, super cheap. It's in a starter deck, so everyone should have access to it pretty regularly. Unfortunately, I think that the whole Hyena concept and line is just one of those mediocre strategies, maybe like a fun strategy, a more casual strategy in the game. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great that we can break off and have these kind of archetypes. But again, not something that's going to be super competitive. And so what I mean by that is all of these hyenas basically have this thing, like they get an additional effect if they're doing something like challenging into a damaged character. So this one, Shenzi, has evasive, which a 3 cost 2/3 with evasive is actually not bad. It should have quested for 2 to make it more relevant. Maybe it would have been a rare in that case, but then when challenging a damaged character, it gets +2 strength, so it becomes a 4/3 body. Again, nothing too relevant for like a meta deck, I don't think, but in a hyena themed deck, probably pretty cool. We do have a Little John here, a 1 cost inkable 0/4, so similar to the Nala and Amber, quest for 1, not anything too relevant. Might get a good shift target in the future, already has one in Steel, not necessarily a good one, but a shift target. But again, not something I see having a lot of staying power or play. Next up, we got Zazu, a 5 cost inkable 3/5 body with evasive that quests for 2. Again, something that's probably good in draft, not really meant for constructed. There's just better things to play at that cost with better stats, better, or same lore, whatever. And then you got the Mime, another common 4 cost inkable 4/3 body that quests for 2, and it has a drawback that says this character can't exert to sing songs. So if you remember back to chapter 1, I think, what was it? Horus was the 4 cost inkable 4/3 that quests for 1 but didn't have any. It was like a vanilla character. So this one has the extra lore but has the drawback of not being able to sing songs to balance it out. Next up, we got Ed, a common 3 cost uninkable 2/3 body hyena. Again, when you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character. So again, just very situational, not good for meta, a meta deck necessarily, but casual deck, fun and reasonable. Quest for 1, so nothing too strong there. Moving on to the fairies, we got Flora, the good fairy, a 2/4 body that's a 3 cost inkable. While being challenged, this character gets +2 strength. So again, not anything too relevant for constructed play. Probably good in draft again. Emerald looks like a really good color in draft so far. We got Merryweather. This is a 1 cost inkable 1/2 body. When you play this character, you may pay 1 to give chosen character +2 strength this turn. A 1/2 body for this I don't see why you wouldn't just play Megara, which is a 2-cost inkable. You play it, it's a 2/1 body instead of a 1/2, and you don't have to pay anything to give +2 strength to chosen character. So again, unless there's some inherent synergy with playing this as a good fairy, or some of her classifications, I don't think that this outclasses Megara on 2 anyways. But yeah, it is what it is. Next up, we have Robin Hood. So this is actually one of the better Emerald commons coming out of this set, I think. Archery Contestant, a 2-cost inkable 2/2 body, which again I've said in the past, not a particularly good stat line. But why this is relevant is because this kind of has a goat-esque effect. When you play this character, if an opponent has a damaged character in play, you gain 1 lore and also quest for 1, and it's also a Robin Hood name, which means it is a good shift target for both the Steel and the Emerald Robin Hood that we're going to take a look at in just a bit. But this, again, is able to come in and potentially close out a game for you. He just comes into play and gains a lore, right? And it's very easy to get a damage character on the opponent's side, especially with the Steel pairing. Just sing a song, put some damage on something, play this Robin Hood, gain a lore, right? Or challenge into something, but then if you challenge, you're not questing. So, generally you're going to do it with a song or something on the Steel side. But a good card on 2, again, with the Robin Hood name. We got the other fairy, Fauna. This is a 5-cost, a very expensive one, inkable card, 3/7 body, quest for 2, just vanilla. Again, nothing too relevant there. We got a rare Iago, fake flamingo. I remember this scene from Aladdin, man. I was a kid when this came out. That's crazy. A 4-cost inkable 2/4 with evasive, but again, gets hit by brawl and everything. But what is the ability here? Whenever this character quests, you pay 2 less for the next action you play this turn. So again, kind of situational. This whole focus on actions, trying to make, I think, Amber Ruby relevant, just hasn't really worked out all that much. I think it does have potential, but I just think these cards are just not what the deck needs in order to be good. Now this card is actually pretty interesting. A 2-cost 3/2 body that quests for 2, and it's uninkable to kind of hold it back. But in an aggro deck, if you're not wanting to play something like Flynn Rider, I think this card is a great alternative. Yes, it's not inkable. Crazy that it's only 17 cents. I think this card is really underrated. But a 3/2 body, it's trading out with pretty much everything on turns 1, 2, and 3, more or less, right? And even potentially on turn 4, and it's questing for 2 in the meantime. I like this card in this is one of the hyenas that I actually like in let's say Emerald Amber aggro, which I know hasn't really been a thing since Amber Emerald is the strongest with its discard packages, I think. But with the Clarabelle, you can afford to really push the envelope with an aggro deck and then refill your hand with Clarabelle, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that in just a little bit. So yeah, we got through a good chunk of those characters pretty quickly. Ed is also a good card that I think is really underlooked. I actually ordered 3 foil ones of this for 75 cents Canadian. I think this card is probably undervalued. Again, not probably too super meta relevant, but maybe in a budget aggro strategy, this card could be really, really good. A 4-cost uninkable quest for 3, 2/4 body that says damaged characters can't challenge this character. So, you quest with it once. If your opponent has some damaged characters on board, this card's going to quest again probably. So very interesting stuff. Yeah, hysterical party goer. Wow, yeah, funny. The hyenas were a good time in The Lion King, but yeah, a 3 questing body on 4. What's interesting is Flynn Rider, which is a 2/3 body with evasive, and has a very specific condition of you basically want your opponent to have nothing in hand in order to quest for 4. This card is a really decent alternative. It just quests for 3 inherently, has 1 extra point of willpower, and has a kind of a beneficial ability in saying that damaged characters can't challenge it. So if your opponent has a Maui and they've already taken something out with it, they can't take this out with that Maui, for example. So kind of interesting. Next up, we got the super rare Scroop, Odious Mutineer, a 3-cost uninkable 2/1 body, so very underwhelming stats. It does have evasive. Let's see what other abilities it has. Quest for 2, okay. And then do say hello to Mr. Arrow. When you play this character, you may pay an additional 3 ink to banish chosen damaged character. Just not great overall, in my opinion. Very expensive. You're paying 6 to banish a chosen damaged character, and then it has 1 willpower, so it literally gets destroyed by anything steel. 2 strength, so it gets taken out by everything in Ruby as well, except for small Sisu. But yeah, not great. The other super rare, Prince Philip, a 3/9 body that's 7 inkable. Slayer of Dragons. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing dragon. I don't know. Do we get a dragon deck in the future? in Lorcana, maybe. But right now, the only thing that comes to mind is what's in the picture here, right? Is the Maleficent dragon, monstrous dragon, which, you know, I guess if you play this, Maleficent monstrous dragon is really not being played anymore too much. Is Sisu also considered a dragon? You know, so it's very situational, so that ability likely never comes up. A 3/9, you know, very high willpower, which is kind of cool. But again, it's just like Medusa, Ice Block, you know, Brawl, that kind of thing. Whenever he challenges a damaged character, ready him after the challenge. So again, just like a worse Scar without Rush. Does quest for 3 though. Again, for 7, there's just better things you want to play. You know, kind of hard to try to make these cards work. This card, Clarabelle, I think is super, super undervalued right now. Again, could be way off the mark here, but anything that says draw cards generally is going to be pretty good. And so this card is a 7 cost inkable, already, thumbs up. 5/6 stat line, really good, right? Survives Zeus, survives Medusa, has to be like ice blocked multiple times in order for it to be affected by stuff. So great stats and a great cost. And it has a shift 5, so you save 2 ink, good spread there. And then it has an insanely strong ability, in my opinion. Keep in step. At the end of your turn, if chosen opponent has more cards in their hand than you, you may draw cards until you have the same number. As soon as I saw this card hit $24, $25 Canadian in the foil, I bought 3 copies right away. I may be wrong. This card might go to like 15. It might go to 10. It's hard for me to see that happening, though. I think this is one of the stronger legendaries in the game because, like I said, like any Emerald strategy that isn't like hard on discard, which to be fair, that's what Emerald is right now. But just imagine like an aggro Emerald strategy where you're just like dumping as much as possible on the board, and then you just draw like 4 cards, 5 cards because you just shift this, and then this is a 2 quester that's hard to out. Like instant draw 4, draw 5. You know, like good. Yeah, I think so. It's mind-boggling to me that this card is cheap. Yeah, has application in a ton of decks. Like look at all the pairings: Emerald Amethyst, Emerald Amber, Emerald Sapphire, Emerald Steel. Literally every single ink pairing. Emerald Ruby. This card could be good in my opinion. So I'm amazed that this card is that cheap. The enchanted, you know, the enchanted in this set look nice, but you know, $249. That's quite expensive. Yeah, this is probably the best Emerald card I think out of the set. Which is funny because we're going to take a look at the next one in Anna here, and this card is way more expensive, especially for the foil one. Pretty card for sure. You know, love the artwork here. And oh, I didn't even notice the dress kind of bleeds into the name. That's kind of cool. I didn't even notice that. Wow, and the plants and everything. That's probably why like it looks so nice. Anyways, a 2/3 body, so very underwhelming. But it's only 3 cost, but it is uninkable. Does quest for 2, so you know, stat wise, it's you know justified so far. But the ability is what you kind of just check yourself with here, because when you play this character, you know, you're not just going to play it on 3, you're going to play it on 5 at the earliest, because you're definitely going to want to play this to proc the ability, which means you have to pay an additional 2 ink. And then you pay the 2 ink, and then you have kind of a couple of choices here, which is always good to have. You either make your opponent discard a card, which can be good, right? An additional just on 3, come down, or sorry, on 5, come down, make you discard a card, trigger my Prince John, right? Facilitate my discard strategy. Make a chosen character get +2 strength this turn to run over something, or banish a chosen damaged character. So all abilities are definitely relevant depending on the situation. The issue I have here is it is uninkable, and I would have better things to play on 5 most likely than this. I could be wrong. But if you're in a discard deck, I don't think you want to risk running this uninkable, because you're already playing Prince John's, Diablos, and in Emerald Steel, you're playing some of the Steel songs that are uninkable as well. So you just don't want to go too high on the uninkable count. If you're worried about the strength level of your deck, Crikey or Cricky, however you say it, is definitely the better option, I think. And the banished chosen damage character, how relevant is that going to be, especially in the Steel pairing, where you just out the cards anyways by just dealing damage to them with, like, you know, double sing, Let the Storm Rage On, double sing, Strength of a Raging Fire, Zeus, whatever it might be. And then you have other ways, more efficient ways to remove characters, things like You're Welcome, we don't talk about Bruno, things like that. So I really struggle where I would find a place to fit this card into Emerald Steel. In Emerald Amber, kind of the same story. You're so focused on the Under the Sea combo in Emerald Amber because that's the combo that wins you games. This card really doesn't facilitate into that line of play. So hard to make that work as well. Because on 5, I'd rather be doing like, more You Have Forgotten Me's, Kita to reduce the board, and then Sing Under the Sea. Like there's just better things to do on 5, I think, than just an isolated, very limited choice of things to do. You have more impactful discard that's cheaper. You don't necessarily need to give strength to anything because again you're focused on Under the Sea for removal, and then same thing for the banished. So yeah, I don't really see too many applicable applications in a competitive setting, but I'm sure I'll be proven wrong because this card is going for a decent amount. Maybe it's just the name, but yeah, that's my analysis there. But yeah, these legendaries, it's crazy to see the Clarabelle less than the Anna, but again, I think it might just be like Anna is a popular character. But the Clarabelle to me just seems better. Let me know in the comment section what you think though. All right, moving on here. The 1 cost 1/2 body. When you play this character, you may pay 2 ink to banish chosen item. So in a Clarabelle focused deck, you would definitely play this, I think. Whether or not you play it at 4 is up to you. Most of the time, you just play this on 1 if you have nothing else and just don't even proc the ability. But having the ability to play this on like 3 or longer to banish items, definitely a good card. And the fact that it is the shift target for the big Clarabelle, it's definitely something that I would be playing. We got another Banzai here, Taunting Hyena, 2 cost inkable, 2/2 body. When you play this character, you may exert chosen damage character. So again, just playing into that Hyena line. And then we have this Robin Hood. This artwork is incredible. I said this last time when I saw this. Nicholas Cole absolutely killing it with the artwork. 5 cost inkable, Robin Hood, Sneaky Sleuth, 3/5 body, similar to Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood. That one's a 3/6. But yeah, you ship for 3, so just another big Robin Hood. Could you imagine if Bucky wasn't errated? You just have like so many Robin Hood shift lines, but the 1 cost, 2 cost Robin Hoods, and now and then you have 2 5 cost Robin Hoods that both shift for 3. Crazy. And then this one's actually useful. This character gets +1 lore for each opposing damage character in play. So if your opponent has 1 or 2 damage characters in play, this card will cost 4, 2, or 3. Kind of relevant, kind of nice. Yeah, I think it's an overall decent card in like a Robin Hood focused build, which could become an archetype thing. Will it be competitive? I don't know. Next up, we've got Mother Gothel, Conceited Manipulator, a 2 cost inkable, 1/3 body. Mother knows best ability, so if you don't know, that's the action from chapter 1, or the song, I should say, from chapter 1. Very good song. When you play this character, you may pay an additional 3 ink to return chosen character to their player's hand. Quest for 1, it's an uncommon. So you really want to play this on 5. Not sure how I feel about it. I mean, it is an inkable version of Mother Knows Best, but you do need to pay 5 basically to use it, and it's not a song, right? So you're using up your turn to play a character to bounce. It's a decent card, but do you really want to use on turn 5? Is it really worth developing this character to get this ability, a 1/3 character on 5 to bounce a card? I would say no. I would rather just sing Mother Knows Best, but that's me. Moving on here, we got Clarabelle, Contented Wallflower, 3 cost inkable, 2/3 body. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you may draw a card. I instantly bought 4 foil ones of this because, again, good shift target and really good ability. Similar to Hey Hey being able to ink you an extra ink, this card draws you a card. It's a 2/3 body on 3, which isn't the greatest, but, it's replaces itself usually, and it only quests for 1, but the big thing is that it does all of these things while being an amazing shift target, right, for the big Clarabelle coming down later potentially. So yeah, between these two, I think Clarabelle, this is why I think this card is so underrated, like undervalued right now, because it's one of the only Floodborns that we've seen from at least the first 3 inks that we've reviewed that actually has really good shift targets, in my opinion, like really super playable shift targets. So this card is like super relevant, I think. Again, I could be way off the mark. It'd be interesting to look back at this in a month or two's time after the set has kind of made its way through a couple of competitive events and see if this card really does show up. What I will say, though, is like it's hard to see the top decks focusing on a Clarabelle strategy, and that's maybe one of the reasons why it's undervalued, is because I know when I was putting together deck lists, it was hard for me to conceptualize like how do I really get the most benefit out of this, like what kind of awkward deck do I have to build, because it doesn't like slot its way into any of the existing Emerald decks in my opinion. Again, I could be wrong. I'd be happy to hear your insights if you've made it this far to let me know. Anyways, next up we've got a 5-cost inkable Shenzi, Head Hyena, 3/6 body for 5 inkable. Quest for 1, but this character gets +1 strength for each other Hyena character you have in play. So again, the Hyena kind of deck, I think this is actually what the starter deck is focused around, if I remember when I did my starter deck review. But whenever one of your Hyena characters challenges a damaged character, you gain 2 lore. So definitely one of the key pieces in the Hyena strategy, but again, it is pretty expensive at 5 cost. And then we get into the Mother Gothel. There was I see it's actually under $1 here, but there was a brief period in Canada where this card was going for $1, and then it instantly shot back up to like $4 or $5 for some reason. But yeah, I don't see this card being worth all that much in the long run. But this is Unwavering Schemer, a 4/6 body, absolutely stunning artwork, by the way. So Dylan, awesome job. 6-cost inkable, 4/6 body, so decent stats, similar to Elsa from the first chapter, right? The legendary Elsa, Spirit of Winter. Shift 4, so we know what that's going to shift on, right? Well, actually, there's a couple of things, because there's also Mother Gothels in like Ruby that it can shift on. But the world is dark. When you play this character, each opponent chooses one of their own characters and returns that card to their hand. So to me, that ability does seem underwhelming, because a lot of people are going to be able to play around this, especially if there's a lot of mid-range and aggro decks where they develop multiple characters on board. Where this card would be good is into the Sapphire decks that really focus on big hitters, and they don't develop super strong threat, a super wide board usually. They focus on just a couple of big threats, and this card could be a huge tempo disruptor for those kinds of matchups. But it is inkable, so in your worst matchups, it's just ink, and it is still a good quester and a good stat line for what it costs, and it's a shiftable Floodborn character. So like overall, for like being a character, it's not bad. Being a shift 4 is pretty good, and the ability is always like relevant. It's always going to do something usually. It's just like how impactful is that self-choosing bounce from the opponent going to actually be? If they bounce a 1-cost character, you're like, yeah, well, I played this card to develop the pressure, not really to get the bounce effect. But it is still like every little bit counts. It still is a tempo disruptor, to be fair. Scar, one of the best enchanters in the set, in my opinion. I think that's from the Be Prepared song, right? When he was singing it, this scene. I think I remember, right? He was like near a lava lake or something. Anyways, amazing artwork. But a rare, this card is the foil in the starter deck, I believe. 4-cost inkable, 4/2 body with ward. So, it's not going to get Storm Raged on or anything like that, but does get Grab Your Swords. Whenever one of your characters challenges a damaged character, you may draw a card. So a card draw engine for the whole Hyena deck, which makes sense, right? Since Scar is the leader of the Hyenas. So, a card draw engine within the archetype, which is always what you like to see. All right, that does it for the characters. Now we move on to the actions, items, songs, that kind of stuff. And we have Hypnotic Destruction, 2-cost inkable action, not an instant, and not in blue. But anyways, draw 3 cards and put 2 cards from your hand on top of your deck in any order. Pretty good card in my opinion. It does cost you 2, right? So it's like, is it worth not developing characters in order to fix my hand a little bit better and fix my top decks? Potentially, right? Given the deck that you're playing, I think having copies of this card, it's just a common, right? 16 cents, right? So you're gonna have them, but do you want foil ones or not? I picked up a foil playset for $2, 50 cents each, because I think this card, Brainstorm in MTG. Back when I played MTG, Brainstorm was a really good card. I'm sure it still is a decent card. But being able to dig for answers is always relevant, and I think. How relevant is it in Lorcana, given that it is much more of a tempo-oriented game? That's yet to be seen. We'll have to test it and see. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad card if you're struggling for what to include in your Emerald deck. And it is an action, so it plays into that whole Emerald wants to have like a kind of like a concept around playing actions. This card fits into that really well. Night Howler Rage is a common 3-cost inkable action. Draw a card. Chosen character gains Reckless during their next turn. So this one's interesting. I never really gave this one a second glance. The draw a card, the fact that it replaces itself is nice. It is, again, just an action, not a song. You force an opponent's character to gain Reckless. So it's like the Beast's Mirror, I think it was, with what the Emerald action from set 1 that would give an opponent's character Reckless. I think that one costs 2. So this one costs 1 more and gets you to draw a card, whereas that one didn't in the first chapter. How relevant is this? It slows an opponent down. I think you'd rather just play Jock though, like the character. That quests for 2 is also a 1/4 body that gives Reckless. Like this card draws a card, but then you don't develop anything on board, no questing pressure, it costs you 3 ink, you can't sing it, so yeah, probably underwhelming. One card that is definitely not underwhelming though, in my opinion, is You're Welcome. This is basically Yzma on a song, but better Yzma because it can target items and locations, and Yzma I'm pretty sure only targets characters. But yeah, you shuffle that character, item, location into the deck, and then that player draws 2 cards. You can target your own stuff to draw 2, or you can target your opponent's stuff and make them draw 2. And in Emerald decks that focus on discard, like Emerald Amber, Emerald Steel, you can definitely force your opponent to draw and then make them discard. And in mill strategies, you can force your opponent to draw. So interesting card, definitely good. I picked up 4 foil ones for sure. I paid $250 Canadian for them. So I ended up paying like $9, no, $10. My math is terrible. $10 for a playset of foils, which you can argue is pretty expensive, but I mean, that's what they were going for in the Canadian market. I think, I don't really think that they'd go down because it is a really good card, but you know, potentially, because I know there's a lot of stock of this stuff going around. Anyways, next one, we got Remember Who You Are. If chosen opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw cards until you have the same number. It is a rare 4-cost uninkable. Just way too situational to be relevant, and again, I'd rather just play Clarabelle, so I don't think that's very good. Prince John Mirror. By the time this video comes out, I've probably already posted my test match showing you how Prince John Mirror could potentially impact the game, at least against Ruby Amethyst. It is definitely going to be a strong card. It forces opponents into certain lines of play, and if you do actually end up triggering the discard effect when you have a Prince John on field, the advantage that you can generate is just insane. This card, in my opinion, is a meta-defining card. How meta-defining is yet to be determined, because I think into the Sapphire and Steel decks, they will be running 4 of item removal, like Cusco, Simba, whatever. Yeah, and I don't know. Like the issue is like you have to see this card, they have to see the item removal, but you know, this card just the lines of play from just like testing it a little bit. Like what's insane to me is on turn 3 you can go Prince John, and then on turn 4 you pay 2 for this item instead of 3. So you can go like Prince John Mirror for 2 ink, and then you still have 2 ink available. Then you can pay 2 ink, play like a Bare Necessities to force a discard, or Ursula Deceiver to force a discard because you have multiple interactions. Or you don't even let them discard because you want them to have as many cards in hand as possible so that you can trigger the discard of this card when you have Prince John on 3, this card on 4. So maybe you develop something like a Smee on 4, in addition to this card being played on 4 for 2 ink as well. And you just put more aggro pressure on board. Then your opponent's going to be forced to discard 1 or 2 cards, giving you a draw 1 or 2 with your Prince John. And then maybe you're able to follow up with like the Bare Necessities or the Ursula Deceiver to see their hand, or even more broken on 5 when they pass back to you, you Lucifer them, and then you make them discard whatever they have left in their hand, or you have Forgotten Me, right? Like it's the play patterns with this card are just, it's just really strong. Like you errata Bucky, but then you release a card like this. This card is good. Obscurosphere. 1-cost inkable item, pay 2 to banish it. Your characters gain ward until the start of your next turn. An interesting item. Again, hard to find a place where this could be played because deck space is very tight. But yeah, I don't know, how relevant is ward going to be? I think ward is already broken on the characters that it's on. Like Prince John, like Bucky. So far that Bucky had to be errated. And Muses, by the way. Don't forget about Muses. Muses is also very, very strong. But yeah, interesting item. The Emerald Chromicon, I put this in my decks to test, but I've never actually drawn it yet. I do think it's a decent card. During opponent's turns, whenever one of your characters is banished, you may return chosen character to the player's hand. So that means if they want to out your characters, whether it's by challenge or by spell or something, or action, like you're going to be bouncing their cards back to hand. And this is relevant because you can then trigger discards during the following turn, right? So it's a tempo disruptor to help clear boards, get cards back into the opponent's hand for you to then discard them. I really like the Chromicon concept. A really, really cool design cards. I picked up 4 foils of each of them just because I wanted to have playsets of each of them. Such a cool card, right? It just reminds you of like the Moxes, right? I mean, that's all. I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for. So I think it's really cool. But yeah, this one is actually one of the better ones, I think. Next up, we got Sherwood Forest, Outlaw Hideaway. This is actually really cool, a really cool location. Man, it's like, oh, man, so many like memories, so much nostalgia. Like Robin Hood's such a good movie, man. And I think it came out during, I think they call it the golden era of Disney when they didn't really have big budgets. And look how good that movie is. Anyways, 2 cost inkable location, Outlaw Hideaway. Cost 2 to move your characters here, which is unfortunate. That's kind of expensive, but it does have 7 willpower. And Forest Home. So your character's name Robin Hood can move here for free. So, we already know there's a lot of playable Robin Hood, so that's great. And then characters here will gain Ward and the ability to exert and pay 1 to deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character while here. So this is potentially like, pretty good, especially for Robin Hoods because they would gain Ward, which means both the new Emerald Shift Robin Hood and the Steel Robin Hood are protected from things like Ice Block, Brawl, Medusa, that kind of stuff. And they move here for free. This unfortunately does not gain you passive lore. If it did, I think it might be somewhat playable in like a Robin Hood focused deck. That might be a little bit more competitive, which would be cool. But because it doesn't gain you passive lore, it kind of is a little underwhelming. The Ward ability is in and of itself enough, I think, to say like you'd want to play this in a Robin Hood based deck. And then the ability to just deal extra damage is actually pretty good, especially obviously you've paired this with Steel because you like Strength, Storm Rage, Zeus, etc. And then you can just continue to ping off stuff, right? And then the final card is Tropical Rainforest, a 3 cost inkable location, 1 to move characters here. It does gain you 1 lore, which is nice, and it does have 6 willpower. Opposing damaged characters gain Reckless. They can't quest and must challenge if able. So all of these cards that say like, you get X ability if an opposing character is damaged. Again, all is very conditional, so not really the greatest right now. What is interesting is, what was it called in Pokemon? Something Spikes. If there's ever like an item or location or character with like Ward or something that says whenever your opponent plays a character, deal 1 damage to that character immediately. Imagine how good all of these, if your opponent has a damaged character in play, they, your cards get this additional effect, or, the opponent's cards get this ailment or something, like Reckless in this case. I think we might get a card like that in the future, right? We already have Chief Bogo, which is, whenever you play a Floodborn, deal 1 damage to opposing character. And that card, is just too slow in this format now, but we might get a card, maybe like a 3 cost card or something in the future that says, whenever your opponent plays a character, just deal 1 damage to it. I don't know, is that too powerful? It seems like it would be too powerful, right? Because it invalidates all the X and 1 characters because they just get banished right away. But I don't know, we might see something like that in the future. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for the Emerald review. Let me know what you think if you made it this far. Overall, just really good Enchanteds too. Like really nice artwork on all of the Enchanted. Like look at this Maui, man. That is nice. Yeah, artists doing work out here for sure. Ravensburger or Disney, whoever, not sparing any expense with the art. I like to see it. Definitely makes it worth it for the collectors. I think the Scar is definitely the best one though. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. What's going to be next? Ruby, I think? Yeah, that's the next one. Take care.